The 20th argument, found on the website godisimaginary.com, is entitled Notice Your Church. And much of the argument reads very similar to the 19th argument, which focused on various texts in the New Testament that involve a radical call to follow Jesus by being willing to give up everything that you have. In the 20th argument, this is extended to the Christian church, but then it shifts after giving very similar references of Scripture to this radical call of Jesus to us. It then goes on to point out that the church, or Christian churches, obviously in many cases do not follow the teachings of Jesus because they have big church buildings, they spend a lot of money on things pertaining to the church, and instead of serving the poor or giving away their money, they end up building buildings and doing those kinds of extravagant things. I would like to make a couple of responses to this. I think this is a very important topic, and I doubt that atheists of the sort that would want to write articles like this are going to be very interested in what I have to say about this. But I think there are some very, very important points to make. First of all, I would like to refer to a prominent biblical story we find in the Synoptic Gospels, in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, shortly before the death of Jesus. We have a story that obviously they thought was very important, and that's the story of the woman who comes to Jesus when he is eating at someone's home, and she brings an alabaster box of ointment, or this precious perfume that's worth a lot of money. She takes it and she breaks it and she pours it on the feet of Jesus. The man that was holding the feast or the dinner, a man by the name of Simon, is angry because he looks at what he calls this waste and a perfume that is worth a year's wages, and she takes it and breaks it and pours it upon Jesus as an expression of her love. He is angry, so is Judas, one of the apostles, who apparently is more concerned about money than anything else. And their response is to think to themselves, or to talk and grumble amongst themselves, saying, what is this waste? Couldn't this have been sold and the money given to the poor? Jesus then rebukes them and says that what this woman has done is a tremendous thing, and it will be spoken of to all generations. She will be called blessed to all generations. This is, I think, a crucial thing to understanding this question. I remember having a conversation once with some students about this very issue. They were saying, well, the church has so much possessions, and it has all this art, for example, in the Vatican in Rome. The church has all these great cathedrals and basilicas that are worth so much money. Why don't we sell all of that and give the money to the poor or feed people? And my response is twofold. Number one, to say this: what if the church sold everything that it had, all of the possessions that it had, all of the art that it possesses, all of the churches that it possesses? What if the church sold every bit of that and fed everybody on planet Earth a meal? And the next day, those people will still be hungry, and the church will have lost and will have given up that whole tradition and that whole treasury that it has of civilization, of religion, of faith, of artistic skill. My point here is this, that human beings are not just animals that eat food. Human beings also are creatures of art, of religion, of thought, of intellectual tradition, of science, and those are all things worthy of investment. It's worthy, for example, the city that I live in, to support our museum or our zoo or other cultural, aesthetic, scientific types of projects. Those are worthy uses of money because they deepen the human experience, they better our ability to serve one another, they enable us to create a deeper, richer experience of being human. Everything is not about feeding people. That's very important, obviously, but there are other dimensions to the human person. Let me add one other observation on this. One time in a conversation on this, I mentioned to a young man who was arguing very forcefully on this issue, I said, one day you will probably fall in love with a young lady and you will want to go buy her something, probably a ring or maybe something else, to express your love to her. Let's say you go and buy a $5,000 ring. How can you justify giving her a $5,000 ring when you could have taken that $5,000 and used it for some other purpose, maybe feeding people or whatever? I think that young man, if he's thinking right, will say, well, wait a minute, I have some obligation to help others, but also I have someone that I love, and I want to do something very meaningful and very rich and very important toward her. And that justifies the use of this expense. In the Catholic tradition, when people give money to build a church or build a cathedral or build a basilica, this is a standing, enduring expression of our love for our religious faith. When we walk into the church, and it's a beautiful structure that lifts our minds up to God and enhances our experience of worship, it is a permanent structure expressing our love and our belief, sort of like the ring that is worn on the finger of a husband or a wife, or some token or expression of our love for that other person. It's justified by your love. Obviously, an atheist isn't going to appreciate this in respect to God because you don't believe in God, but hopefully you can appreciate this in relationship to others. You may buy a gift or do something for your family. You might buy a nice home for your family because you want them to have a nice place to live. So it is with the Christian faith. Is it so hard to understand that Christians want to show their love for God by doing extravagant things sometimes to show their love for God? Certainly that doesn't excuse us from doing things to show our love for our neighbor or for those who are in need. And for that reason, I would point out that I think if you look across our world, you will find that the most amazing and consistent and trustworthy sources of care and love for those who are outcasts, in need, and suffering, I think you will find they are motivated by religious motives, especially Christian motives. In the United States of America, for instance, you'll find that the greatest source of giving or charitable giving is by people of religious organizations, especially and most as far as dollar amounts are concerned. And the highest form of contributing to charitable causes is Christian giving. And of course, then our government in turn takes money through taxes and also gives money to those in need and provides social supports for people who are in need. But Christians give freely to help others, but we also give for other purposes too. We're not one-dimensional beings. We're multifaceted beings. And it is justifiable that we give money to both the poor and to the church, and that we build buildings, that we do things, that we express our love for God in these various ways. So I think to the degree that a person knows what it is to love God, or to even love anyone for that matter, you can appreciate things like what we do in building churches.